So, this is going to be the third catch-up stream of the Crazyhouse candidates. So, Crazyhouse candidates catch-up. So, we're in the midst of the Crazyhouse World Championship 2021. These are the 13 players who are playing a round robin against each other. Every pair of players are going to play 10 games, and the winner is the one who has the most game points at the end of it. Not match points, but game points. The winner, the one with the most game points, is going to face off against the 2020 world champion, Jasugi99, aka 12 Teen, who was the runner-up in 2017 to Jan Lee. So, we have the former champion Jan Lee here and 12 other players whom people who've been watching my streams will be very familiar with these names. These great names of Crazyhouse. And the current leader in percentage game wins is Katask with 80% wins so far, Opperwazen with 74%, and Blitzbullet with 71%. So those three seem to be the most likely to win the candidates. Now what we're going to do in this stream is we're going to catch up some of the games that haven't been live streamed. Actually, most of the matches have been live streamed. Some of the matches I caught up analysis of in a previous stream, in a previous couple of streams on the same day. Just a couple more matches that didn't get live coverage are doganswer against Kleerkast. So we're going to look at those games now, and also Blitzbullet against Mariorton. And then also just today, Jan Lee faced off against Zixon. And the Real Ganes on Twitch covered it. I'll just leave the details in the Twitch chat, anyone watching. But the previous match between Bugzilla and Blitzbullet overran, so he missed the first couple of games between Jan Lee and Zixon, so I'll cover that because he didn't get to cover it live. So that's the purpose of this stream. It's a catch-up of games that people might not have had the chance to see live. And I'll take the opportunity, because I'm doing it after the games, to actually go sometimes a little bit deeper and look at some analysis. Originally it was just going to be a highlights from these games, but the more I looked at the games, the more I found interesting things I wanted to show you. So here goes, and hopefully I'm live on Lichess. Let's see. I am live on Lichess. Wonderful, wonderful. Nice to be featured on Lichess. So hello, Crazyhouse viewers. And hello, anyone else who just happens to pop by this Crazyhouse stream because they're looking at the Lichess streamers. Okay, so doganswer and Kleerkast. So I'm going to look at these games from Kleerkast's point of view. So Kleerkast is black in game one. I'm just going to play through the games, just make some comments as we go along. And in particular, I'm interested in interesting positions, interesting things the players might have missed, or strong moves the players did play. So doganswer playing actually the Kleerkast system with d4, g3, fianchetto system. Very solid. Well, they're copying each other, so that proves he's playing the Kleerkast system. And brings the bishop out to f4. Perhaps he was thinking of bringing the knight here and targeting the c7 square, so Kleerkast anticipates that with a6. Knight e5, maybe he's thinking of taking and replacing the knight, hitting this pawn again. Or maybe, what Kleerkast is more worried about, he's thinking of a sack on f7, although I'm not sure what would be the idea of that. I guess it would be the sack on f7 and then put the pawn on h6 would be the idea. But okay, he does the first of those plans. Queen moves to defend that pawn. h3. In these setups, you have to sometimes play h3 and h6, because otherwise that your pieces in hand could land on these sensitive squares. So surprisingly, white has nothing in hand, which is why black doesn't have to go straight for h6. So he plays a more active move first, and now he's hitting this bishop. Obviously, double pawns here and here wouldn't be very strong. It would open up this square here for possible attacks. So the bishop backs off. So both players very solid. this is lots of pressure on this square here. Queen d2, and I don't see how he's defended the g3 square, so I'm just going to turn on engine for a moment. Knight takes g3 seems to me like a thing. Apparently it's not bad, but it's not the best move, so I'll just take it out of the study. Best moves are stuff like bishop takes knight and knight at c4, and that to me is surprising because this bishop near the king is a very good defender, so I'm slightly skeptical, but apparently that's one idea the engine's thinking about. But okay, knight takes e3 is very strong, which is what Kleerkast played, and bishop at h6, so this is very solid. Obviously he couldn't take with the pawn because otherwise knight takes g3 would come. Queen f3, and this bishop takes e5 move does come in the end. So he's taking a knight. He's actually secure back home. So if you're taking a piece, you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do with the piece? And it's fairly clear what he wants to do with the piece. Target the queen, but also target h3. So pretty good play here from Kleerkast. Doganswer doesn't seem to have an answer, and for how to defend both the queen and the pawn, not so easy. So he just defends the pawn and gives up the queen for a safe king. And already you can see Kleerkast is making inroads into white's position. And then I lost it. So takes, 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 takes. And already I'm even thinking in this position, can you go knight takes g3 even? And that is actually a good move, because it opens up this long diagonal on the king. So knight takes g3 would have also been good, but instead knight f4 takes, 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 and we get the same result by a more circuitous route, where we have this long diagonal open, and this is very strong for black. Check, and picks up a pawn. Picks up a pawn, threatening another pawn now on g3. So very nice play from Kleerkast. So this doesn't do anything against knight takes bishop, apart from, I guess, this would come. So I guess if bishop takes bishop, he's planning knight takes bishop. Yeah, so if you go knight takes bishop, at least he can take back with the knight and claim that his king is still solid. Okay, Kleerkast opts for defense. Bishop at g1. And so, yeah, Kleerkast is dominating. I now remember watching this game live. Kleerkast is dominating, but has to find a breakthrough. At f3, he's winning more material. g5, so white's got at least some ideas of attack for future, with h6 slightly weak. Bishop takes g2, takes back. Knight at f3. Actually more of a defensive move, eyeing this pawn. Bishop at e3. So protecting the pawn, but also protecting g1. And probably the thing to do here is this. So this, and replace a bishop here, maybe. Try and put some pressure on this diagonal might have been an idea, but okay, instead, at h2, this seems like a slight inaccuracy because white can just take it. d4 came. Both sides you see in big time pressure, 7 seconds against 3 seconds. So we shouldn't comment too much about the moves. But bishop e5, but black is letting his advantage slip somewhat. D takes c3, knight takes e5. And in this position, at least, you've just had your bishop taken. You really have to take it back to stay in the game. Queen at e2 is I think it could be called a blunder. Knight takes f3, queen takes f3, and white is truly back in this game. The queen is now hit with tempo. Queen has to back off. Queen is being hit with tempo again. Don't know if you realize this is already double defended, so this is no good at all. Takes, 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 check. He doesn't even have time to go rook takes bishop because he's lost a queen, so this is a mate threat. So he takes the bishop first. He tries to defend the mate threat, and really black is finished here. White already has mate in this position with a simple idea, rook at h8, drawing the king into the corner, and then you're getting at g7 with check. So you're keeping the check, and then bishop at h6, queen here, checkmate. So rook at h8, no defense, But instead, doganswer went for the slower approach, putting a pawn on g7, and in one move, having fought back in this game, he lost it, and Kleerkast strikes. Knight takes g3 check, and new knight on f1 checkmate. So, that was game one. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed that game, just so I know that people are here. So it'd be good to hear that people can hear me fine, that they're enjoying the games. Then at least I know that everything's working correctly. Okay, well I'm going to put up my logo, and we're going to cover the analysis as we go forward. And if anyone is watching, this is the study link in the Twitch chat. So you can also play along within the study if you like. Okay, so let's go on to game two. And just to let everyone know, also in 1 hour, Jan Lee is back in action. It will be morning in Australia, and he'll be back in action against. I don't have my information to hand, but Kleerkast will be streaming, and Jan Lee will be playing in 1 hour's time. So my plan is to go through these games within the next hour, hopefully. So I have to keep a certain pace, and raid Kleerkast as the live action gets back underway in 1 hour's time. So I'll press ahead. Game two, Kleerkast is white, and it's going to be the Kleerkast system. I mean, one could call it this, but maybe older players will call it, name it after other players like Dovijanic or Blitzbullet or whatever. But it's this very solid setup with d4, g3. Queen d7, h3, develops the bishop, not quite sure where the bishop is going. He just wants to pick up a knight and put the knight on f4, so it's a very safe king. Not too impressed by that bishop on h2, to be honest, but maybe at some point he wants to do this move here, which he does, and then it makes a lot more sense. Takes, takes, and you can see how g3 is, well, it's defended, but it's not much use because the knight is actually controlling these two squares. So the knight can support something there. So at g3 comes, and so actually he's in some trouble here. Takes, 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 and he's just suddenly lost. Why did he take the bishop, not the rook? Because the bishop is the defender of this square. So he's lost his defender. White already in a little bit of trouble here. Takes f5, tries to defend, but these dark squares have collapsed, and that's trouble. Not much to say about this game. Kleerkast has been outplayed. Knight to g4, nice move, because takes, takes, the queen comes into action. Bishop takes d5 check, simply slides across. And already here, I think I even saw it in the live game, black has a simple mate, but didn't find it. And the simple mate is, sorry, after bishop at g2. Bishop at g2, he's trying to defend, but the simple mate is queen g3. The g3 square is not protected. And if you go here, then what's the finish? I was thinking rook here, check, queen here. That's not going to work because the bishop defends. So we've got a rook, knight, and a pawn. And we can't finish with we can't go rook, pawn, knight, because the knight does defend this square. So it's not totally straightforward. But the way to do it is knight here, king here, and then exploit the pin and rook in the corner. So that was the simple mate missed. Of course, the king could instead go to g1, but then the mate's much simpler. You think of the king as stuck on the back rank. These squares are controlled. And you get a simple back rank mate. Whichever way the king goes, if it goes this way, rook here is checkmate. And if it goes this way, then rook here is checkmate. So either way, there's a back rank mate. But instead, doganswer goes for the slower move at f2, but there's no coming back here. For white, attempts to defend, check, queen here check, rook takes pawn, queen takes pawn. So here again, black has mate in 2, which he does find, takes, takes, and knight at g3 checkmate. So doganswer levels things up at 1 game all after 2 games. Game 3, Kleerkast is black. Are we going to see a repetition of this fianchetto system? We're not. We're going to see a more classical London from black. Castles, takes, takes. Usually it's worth it to take with the pawn. If I just look at the engine for a moment, engine mildly prefers at low depths taking with the pawn. The pawn is just usually a bit more annoying and a bit harder to ignore. You could ignore the bishop, but a pawn you can't really ignore. The only slight disadvantage of the pawn is maybe sometimes black might have ideas here, but here that would only help white. So it takes with the bishop, takes, takes. No deep analysis from me on this. He decides to go straight for the king. Takes, takes, king takes, and takes back. Rook g1, trying to get some safety for his king at g4, and black is very safe. So this is looking good from black so far. Takes, takes. Why doesn't he take rook takes g4, you might ask? I mean, it's a perfectly decent move. I guess this might come. This is possible, and you'd get a check and maybe even win a pawn, but the white king is very naked with no pieces around it, so this might be quite unwise. So just simply h5 it would be good in this position. So white chooses not to take that pawn, in fact, in the game. Instead hits the bishop. Crazyhouse moves the bishop wisely. Rook takes g4 comes, and again here, h5 is good. You don't need to worry about this bishop because it's defended by the queen. What I'm wondering is, why not bishop takes f2? Is there a good reason why not? There is a good reason why not. So so h5 is a very strong move in this position. There is a problem with bishop takes f2, which is the natural move and the move that happened in the game. Oh, PKR, excellent. We have someone in the Twitch chat. Greetings and welcome. There's also knight h5 if pawn takes on e5 earlier, which is maybe a bit annoying. So just to back up a little bit, just to show here, if pawn takes here, knight h5 was the concern. And well, yeah, I mean the engine, for whatever reason, just wants to go ballistic in this position. It's thinking of ideas like knight takes pawn, knight at h6. Yeah, and I'm not sure. And it thinks the position is roughly level. I mean, just sort of a depth 20. So that's just sort of just to take away this for a little while, so you can see the analysis. It's thinking of things like knight at h6, takes, takes. This g7 square is defended. Pawn here might be an idea. I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. So it's hard to say. It's saying minus 1.1, and if in the position after bishop takes, minus 3.0 was its estimation. But okay, hard to say. And I'll just turn that off again. But yeah, for whatever reason, black goes straight in, blocks up here, and there's this very subtle point here that actually h5 is really good here. And why not bishop takes f2? Bishop takes f2 just feels so natural to me. But it turns out white has a strong move in this position. White's not necessarily winning, but it's just a very annoying move. Knight at f6. I'm going to turn on engine to help me along here. So just sidestepping, apparently, is a bad idea because white can just be very brutal and just put a bishop on h6. And if you take it, put a pawn on g7, swing the knight back, and so on and so forth. So a very brutal approach if king h8. Obviously, if you take with the queen, queen takes f6, you're losing a whole queen, so that's not a good idea. So just taking back is fine. Knight h6, sidestep, at g7 takes, and you'd think swing back with the knight, but you don't have a second knight to really cause trouble just yet. You could just, if swing back, just step down. So the move here is to bring a second knight into the attack with knight takes d5. Black apparently is still okay, but you have to be very careful. So if you were to be foolish enough to do a move like queen takes d5, then you have knight f5 check, step back, and oof, knight e7 check, picking up the queen. Don't pick up the queen just yet, pick it up with check. Well, picking up with check is a bad idea, so you'd have to step to h6. You throw in another check. So apparently you don't go g7 because then he comes here and checks will run out. So in fact you go here, pawn here, and a very simple move, just simply rook takes pawn. So when the next move the rook makes is going to come with a check. So any counter check like pawn here is just going to go rook takes g3 counter check, or rook takes queen counter check, which is going to very soon lead to mate. And if that's not going to lead to mate, there's also bishop at g7 is a mate threat. So pretty hard to defend everything. So for example, rook there to defend the mate threat, there's a double check and a check and a check mate, for example. So that's just to illustrate why stepping the king all the way back, you have to be a little careful with that knight when that knight comes and takes on d5. You can't just take it back. There is, it turns out, a move black has to defend. You could check straight away, but you have to check straight away, and then you have to play, either before or after that check, you have to play this knight at e6 move to protect g7. And maybe black is doing okay here. You give up the queen, and then you go at g3, king h3, knight f4, king here, knight here check, knight here check. You've got king h4. You see how white can just go up and down and definitely get a draw if he wants it, but white could also try and go for the win by taking this and stepping here. And okay, I mean, this is just going way too deep. So comes back to defend g7, so you're not getting mated, and you're threatening rook at f4 and knight g5, I think, pushing the king back, and then pawns will mate. And we have 3 pawns in hand, so that's a mate threat. Bishop at g5 would defend. Okay, I'm going far too deep here, but it just gives an idea. Takes, discover check, takes back the queen, and the point of this all looks very threatening, but apparently, yeah, white might be okay at the end of all of this. It's very hard to say. Engine has no idea. Let's say unclear position at the end of all this. So very important basically to defend key squares with moves like knight at e6. So even though there's so many pieces around the black king, he can step back here and there's nothing that can actually check the king on h8 if there's a knight defending g7. So I guess that's the lesson for all that. So that's why bishop takes f2 wasn't the best move, because of this idea of knight at f6, which is at least a draw, maybe a very confusing position. So to avoid all that, you can go h5 here, and that gives the king luft on h7. And the same ideas don't work. So bishop takes f2. Instead, this was played at e7. Check came, and then he took the pawn, and h4 check. And just to say, what's the idea of h4 check? He's actually hoping for this, throw in a check, throw in another check, and he wants to put a rook down the moment he can, basically. If the king steps back, it's very easy. Just check and checkmate. And if the king steps forward, there's check, and this is also checkmate. So this was a trap. Dog answer, sidestep the trap, step back, but this is already still a lost position, and Kleerkast wins the queen. There's no mate threat on him. Knight takes and knight at f4 check, and mate is coming. So white resigned. In fact, king f1, this is the mate, which is on the way. So that was game 3. Kleerkast taking a 2-1 lead. Turning now to game 4. Kleerkast is white again, and goes for this bishop g5 stuff. Queen d3. So what do we think? Queen d3. Usually getting the queen out is risky because it can be hit with tempos, but okay. And that's what happens, it gets hit a little bit. So that's that. I can turn the engine off, but let's say black's not doing too badly, would be a summary of the position so far. Bishop g2, d4, knight to d5, and f3. And I actually really liked this move f3 when I saw it, because the idea is, if you take the pawn, obviously this knight hangs, and if you take with the bishop, then again you just takes, and the knight still hangs. But apparently this is not so bad for white. Knight at f4 would come, for example. But yeah, so white is apparently doing okay here, with moves like this. Hang on, so you could take with the queen, but then this might come. Okay, so there are a lot of weaknesses actually in black's position. So, but there's actually a better way of taking this, which is this way, and that's what happened in the game. So excellent move from Kleerkast. And what's the idea? The idea is queen takes knight, knight takes knight. It looks like this knight is just hanging, and the bishop is also hanging. So this looks terrible for white. But if you take the knight, this bishop is taking here and opening up all kinds of weaknesses around your king. So that's not a good idea. And if you take the bishop, as happened in the game, then at d7 comes, and the king, notice, is being pushed onto a dark square. And what that means is that this knight is no longer under attack because of the pin. So white simply castled queenside to defend the rook. So really nice play here from, I mean, this strange looking knight on e5 is a really aggressive piece. And here, black played bishop at h6, which looked a bit strange during the game. I was feeling this king looks a bit abandoned, and you have 5 black pieces all bunched up in the corner, not really defending it. So it looked like a bit of a mistake, I would say. But hard to say exactly what the approach should be. Maybe bishop d6 is an idea. So just to show the line, if bishop d6 at e7, this is a tricky move. If you take this way, you've fallen for a trick. That's checkmate. So and if you take this way, then likewise you've fallen for the same trick. So the point of at e7 is to force king takes, and then knight at c8, and takes the bishop, and put a bishop here, check, and take this pawn. This would be the kind of idea, and white's actually doing quite well here. So why is white doing so well here? So it turns out you can't take this bishop, because this check and the power of this rook defending, and here's checkmate, so you can't take that bishop because this square would become weak. And for the same reason, you can't take the knight, because the same idea, exactly. So you have this paradoxical situation. Just to wind back a bit, knight here, check, king here, knight takes bishop, pawn takes bishop here, check here, queen takes pawn, where both your pieces are hanging, but neither can be taken. So because of that, white's actually doing rather well. So that's very interesting. But this, so white is doing well regardless. But with this move, white should be doing even better. f4 is good. Bishop d6, queen takes d4 is good. Or is it good? There is better. There's knight at f7 check, takes here, and then just takes this bishop. So just taking all the pieces around the king, and then queen takes. So we're threatening. Very simple moves. Very simple. It's a very simple way of playing it. Just crashing through. And it's because black doesn't have a bishop to attack and defend at the same time. Actually pretty hard to defend this. So very simple play was working. But okay, queen takes immediately. Knight at e6 is a very good defense from doganswer. White's still doing well though. Queen takes d6, takes back, bishop at b6. You've got to be careful here, because if you block stuff like this, you're actually getting mated with takes, and then a white knight lands on e6, and it turns out that king is actually getting mated. So the king had to run, knight at c8 check, and the point is if you take it, a new knight comes. So king f8. So maybe, so really quite good defense here from doganswer. He's somehow managing to get his king running away. So that's why, just winding back a little here, maybe this was a slight mistake to use this approach here rather than the much simpler approach here to simply take all black's pieces and then take here. And you really break through. But what happened in the game was a bit more complicated with the sack and the check, and very good defense from doganswer, to the point where Kleerkast is now worried for his own king. And he sidesteps his king to b1. And here doganswer missed some killer blows. A real killer blow here. And the killer blow is bishop takes c2 check. And the almost instinctive move here is just to slide away to a1. And that doesn't really work, because then you take the rook. And notice white only has a pawn to attack with. And you can't queen, and what's going on? You could take back, queen takes pawn. What black is always just, there's no time to build anything. No time to say put a pawn somewhere and build some kind of attack. This queen takes rook is now coming as a threat, and white is just getting trounced. So that's why you can't just sidestep. But you can't take it either, because if you take it, queen takes pawn comes, and pawn here, and queen on the back rank, and you can try and block, but simply queen takes rook. So not going directly for the mate, just going for queen takes rook and queen takes bishop, queen takes b1 next. And there's just no defense. Black is crushing. So an opportunity missed with the simple move, bishop takes c2. Instead, pawn takes knight came. And unfortunately, this opens up this file and allows just simple promotion, and white's doing well again. But instead, Kleerkast did this, and now again there is a defense for black. I'm talking a lot here. Can anyone in the Twitch chat see a defense? I'm just going to check the engine. Yeah, there's only one move here for black. There's only one move, and hopefully it's covered up so you can't see it. Yeah, it is, by the looks of it. There's only one move here for black to defend against the obvious, which is pawn here and just crash through and then eventually promote and so on. Surprisingly, there's only one move. And it's not bishop takes c2. So bishop takes c2 is decent, and maybe you don't have time to take the rook, but yeah. So bishop takes c2, you just slide across. Blunderman 1, same again. Yeah, so not quite, because so bishop takes c2, we just slide across, and we don't have time now to take the rook, because now this is actually a mate threat with at e7. So to show the mate threat is this, takes, king f7, new knight on d6, king sliding to g8, and then queening. Queen, this, and knight here, checkmate. So there's a serious threat here. So we need some. So if there's a serious threat, we either have to defend or we need an even more powerful attack. So I wonder if anyone can see it. With only a knight and queen in hand. I mean, this, honestly, this is actually stunning. Okay, we've got 40 minutes until the live match with Kleerkast, so I'm going to give just a final 10 seconds for someone to spot the move for black here. It's not obvious at all. But again, you have to somehow defend. Knight a3, Blunderman 1, amazing, you got it, yes. Knight at a3. And the idea is, if you go here, obviously, just queen at b1, rook takes, and knight takes pawn, checkmate. And if you come here, then that's not much better, to be honest, because here, 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 and I think that will be mate. It is indeed. So you have to take the knight. But if you take the knight, there's a very simple move that black has, which is throw in a check, block, or move aside, and take that pawn. And white only has a pawn and a knight to attack with, and I don't know, suddenly try and take this, and we take back, and then slides. Okay, so actually, so this looks, okay, so still white looks like he's doing pretty well, because after all, check, takes, and the move is not queen takes and lose the queen. So this is really tough. The move is actually sidestep. And the reason for that is, the reason why black's winning this is because so just to back up a second. Knight a3 takes, is bishop takes c2 possible here is the question, and then the king can just sidestep, and you only have one pawn in hand, and that's not enough to make stuff happen. So if queen here just blocks with the pawn. So bishop takes c2 is tricky because if you take that, then you're getting mated. So takes here is getting mated with queen takes e2, and you have another queen in hand. So that is getting mated, but you simply sidestep and you're actually okay, in answer to Blunderman 1's question. And so, yeah, so that's why this is actually a takes, and you're right, black is still doing well here. And the moves are kind of weird. The moves are like king f7, and I don't understand this, so just go king f7. And so maybe you drop a pawn here on d5 to try and do something here, but you don't apparently have time now. So queen, you now no longer have a pawn to drop with, so you've got to drop with the knight. And then apparently, yeah, so apparently white has no material, and so that's why apparently black is okay, surprisingly. So all white's material is tied up, and he doesn't have quite enough to attack this king, apparently, surprisingly. So you're right, takes is winning for black, absolutely right. The line I was thinking here was takes, so this is very confusing. Takes, and sidestep, and the idea here is you can't afford to take this queen, because otherwise this rook falls, and take, check, takes here, and I mean this is just pointless, but I'm just showing anyway. And you're giving away all your pieces, and then you're eventually getting checkmate. But maybe what Blunderman 1 said in the comments makes a bit more sense, in terms of just open up the king and then yeah, and then just go king f7. That's definitely a creative way of playing it. And it is completely winning for black. So yeah, so but the key move is knight at a3. Interesting. So just to back up a second, king f7 in the original position doesn't work because of f5. Yeah, so that's. Okay, I think this. I have to admit this was a bit too deep for me, but what was played. Yeah, and Blunderman, you're spot on actually. Yeah, knight a3, then bishop takes c2 is good. What was played instead was this, and this comes anyway. And he didn't do this because his knight takes queen comes, and this is coming next, and white's doing very well. So what happened in the game was this, takes, king f7, but that's no better because of this. Well, actually, in this position, actually, he could have just promoted to queen directly. And that's even stronger, it turns out. With the rook landing there, and the knight here's checkmate. Okay, so I think I'm going too quickly, but what I'm trying to say is he could just promote here, and that would also. So what happened in the game is he should have taken, but then you're losing anyway. So he went here, he should have promoted, but this is also completely winning, just taking all the material. And again, slightly stronger here was instead of rook at, queen at, because then you're picking up the rook with check next move. And you're forcing black to drop all his threatening material. Takes, knight here, check, knight here would be checkmate. If he goes the other way, then just rook here, check, takes and takes is checkmate. Okay, so queen that would have been a slightly stronger approach, but this also eventually mates. Queen takes knight, rook here, check, knight here, check. Just takes the rook and there's no defense against this and this checkmate. So just taking all the material. So that was game 4, and Kleerkast takes a 3-1 lead after that game. So yeah, doganswer had to find knight at a3 and he didn't. And so we're back to the same old opening. They're both playing what I call the Kleerkast system. What I sometimes call the Kleerkast system, because we see Kleerkast playing this all the time, with d4, g3. Takes, but of course a lot of other players have also played this system. Okay, so I'm going to play through till we see it. Particularly crucial point in the game. Bishop f5 checks, backs off, knight comes in. Already this is looking very dangerous for black, but he's still hanging. Sorry, I mean dangerous. I meaning dangerous. A dangerous attack from black, so looking risky for white. The engine goes from -11 to +10 after this move, though. But I hadn't really planned to talk about this much. But what the engine just wants go for pawns and bishop takes c2, queen takes c2, pawn at g2, and get another pawn somehow and checkmate on h2. Those sorts of ideas. But after this, white actually has this. And engine suddenly likes white. But okay, I hadn't planned to talk about this too much. This instead came knight here, takes here, takes here, takes back, knight h2 check, knight takes bishop. So watching this game, I thought black had a wonderful attack, and how is he going to stop rook at h1 checkmate? What I didn't realize is the whole time white is actually doing very well. I mean, queen at h2 is solid, takes here. Nasty move, because you can't take back. I thought this was like some kind of slow torture from Kleerkast. He was completely crushing this game. Rook at h1 check simply takes it, and of course you can't even take back because queen at g2 is checkmate. But simply knight at h4. Apparently that's not the best defense. So what is the best defense? Well, it's very unclear. Knight at h4 came, and actually for the first time in the game, the engine does like black's attack. So what did white do wrong? It's very hard to say what white did wrong, but it doesn't like queen takes bishop. It wants just to go in. And the idea is if you take here, I'm guessing knight at f6. No, knight takes e7 and initiate your own attack apparently on f6. So after this comes takes. This is the key move in the game. So if it were a puzzle, I'd say, what should black play in this position with the queen in hand to win this game? With 13 seconds on the clock, so I'm going to give you 13 seconds, but I'm not expecting anyone to see this. So you want to go queen at g2, but you can't because the knight's defending it. So you might think maybe try and chase that knight away, but that might be a bit slow. So chasing the knight might be one approach. So g5 is not a bad move. But Blunderman 1, I mean, I didn't expect anyone to get it so quickly, but Blunderman 1 did get it, is bishop takes f3, because the knight can't be distracted with knight takes f3 or queen takes g2 is mate. But that's really annoying, because queen at h1 now is a mate threat. and probably white has to play something like rook at h2, and then at g2 comes, and now we're threatening again queen at h1, and you can take the bishop, but then queen at f1, picking up a queen with check. At e2 check, you have to take it, or you're getting mated, but then queen here check, and queen here is checkmate. So that's if you take the bishop. And the other option is taking the pawn. And that way is not much better because takes back, takes again, takes again. You have to take, or mate, queen at h1 is coming. And now there's a quicker mate, it turns out, with knight at g1, but no one would play that. You'd play this, picking up the queen with check, and now it's a very simple mate. So that all comes by playing bishop takes f3 in this position. So Kleerkast had a golden opportunity here to win this game, which I thought he was winning the whole time, but actually white was doing well. Instead he played at g2, and that turns out not to be so good because of takes, bishop takes h6, and he went for this attack, but actually he doesn't have the mate because this knight is a hero, defending everything. And instead he did this, and then immediately saw, oops, and resigned, because he has knight f6, rook here check, and queen here checkmate. And so doganswer didn't need to play out the mate, because Kleerkast saw the writing on the wall after doing this. So the game looked very promising. It turned out there was only one point in the game where Kleerkast really had a golden opportunity, and that was bishop takes f3. So missing that, he missed that game. And his lead was cut to 3-2 at the halfway stage. Game 6, I'm going to play through till we get to a semi-interesting position and then take a drink. We'll get all these symmetric pawn structures, but notice not the fianchetto this time from Kleerkast. So he's threatening here, takes the knight, take the bishop. So he defends the bishop and defends this pawn. Nice move. Hits the bishop, takes back with the queen. The queen now can be hit with tempo. The queen backs off. Takes. Hits the black queen with tempo. f5. Looks reasonable, although it does slightly weaken this maybe at some future time. Maybe I'd be slightly worried, but seems decent. Takes. And really, Kleerkast goes straight for that e6 square. Very nice. He's already on e6, and that bishop was hanging the whole time, but black never had a chance to take it. And suddenly white seems to be doing quite well, but apparently that's not the right move here. But it's not something I really wanted to analyze. But apparently, takes, and takes here is more promising than what actually happened. Takes, which also looks decent. But the problem here, apparently, and again, I didn't really want to analyze this. This just sort of came up. Is knight f3 check, which you kind of have to take, or else this is checkmate. But the problem with taking it is takes, knight at h4, and why can't we just sidestep? Bishop at f3, and the problem is pawn at h2 is a mate threat. Okay, so that is awkward, and I hadn't even analysed this, it just sort of came up just right now when I was looking at it. So knight at f3 was missed. Doganswer instead played knight at h4, takes that key pawn, and white's back in control. Hitting the queen, hitting the bishop on g7. Black trying to desperately get some initiative, gets 2 pieces for the queen, but white's still doing quite nicely. The 3 bishops defense takes here. Okay, I didn't analyze this in too much detail. This is a long game. Queen here check, pawn here, bishop here threatening queen takes h7 checkmate. So his queen's hanging, but he just keeps on making counter threats. A check, a checkmate threat. Backs off with the knight, so he's threatening at g7. Counterattack from black, and it's a good counterattack. So if you take, this takes back. And white gives up the queen for a pawn and a piece to continue the attack. And all the time the queen is defending the king. It's going to fall eventually, but there might be some counterattack ideas once it does. Takes this knight. And this is the key move in the game, which I really wanted to... So a very nice play here from Kleerkast as white. And this is the key move in the game. White to play. I mean, there are many correct continuations, but the correct continuation is not king takes g2, as was played in the game. In fact, blocking is fine, sidestepping is fine, basically anything is fine except what king takes g2. King takes g2 is a very bad move. So why is it a bad move? What black to play? And actually mate in 4. Black to play and mate in 4, and he had 37 seconds on the clock to find it. So I'm going to just temporarily flip the board so people see it from doganswer's perspective. You have a knight and a queen in your pocket. Can you see a mate in 4? And if you do nothing, you're in trouble. Blunderman, he's already seen it. I'm going to give everyone else another 15 seconds. But nice one, Blunderman 1. Yeah, thanks for being there and seeing all the mates. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, everyone else, last 5 seconds to notice it. Yeah. Yeah, so doganswer missed queen e2, and I'll just flip it back. Well, no, I'll keep it flipped to play the mate. Queen e2, you can block with something, like a rook, for example, but then knight at e3 check, controlling this. The king can't come out, so it comes to one of the other squares, and then queen at g2 takes as checkmate. So you have to move the existing queen. So what happened in the game instead was new queen on e2. And now in this position, white has only one move to avoid checkmate, and he didn't find it. So Kleerkast has only one move in this position to avoid checkmate. He played what I would just play instantly, which is bishop at f2. But that deserves just as much of a blunder mark as everything else that we've been seeing. The one move with 10 seconds on the clock, so let's give you the last 10 seconds to see what the move is for white. And the answer is king h1. Because you can try and do this, but the important thing is, well, actually, you can even block or take. There's nothing. You have no way of getting through, basically. Block, if ever rook on the back rank, we can just defend. There's no way for black to penetrate, as it were. And Blunderman 1 got it. There's just a delay on the stream, which is why I didn't see it until now. So bishop at f2 was played. Queen 2 takes f3 was played, which is correct. King g1, by the way, would have been a bit more trying, but then there's takes, and that just turns back into the game position with king h2 directly. And in this position, doganswer just grabbed the bishop. He missed his chance. The move here was just taking f2, basically. And if you don't take back, queen here is checkmate, so you've got to take it. Takes back, and it's the same pattern. Knight here check, rook here check, and queen takes checkmate. The same pattern again, with the knight and a double take mate. Sort of double take, because it's protected, but only protected once, and you double take, and it's checkmate. So in this position, yes, you have to double take on this, and then double take on h2 to deliver mate. Instead, So unfortunate for doganswer, he captures this bishop, and white is back in the game. Needless to say, if you do this, then this is picking up a queen, and white's doing very well. But takes here is also picking up a queen, and he's soon found a mate. I think it's called the swallowtail mate. You have like the two tails. In fact, in this position, black resigned, but Kleerkast would have found in 14 seconds. Just had the checkmate on his fingertips. But black resigned before he could play it. Okay, so that was game 6, and that put Kleerkast 4-2 up, going into game 7. And Blunderman says, yeah, only king h1 remains, but who could see such a move instead of a natural block? Yeah, it's sort of so counterintuitive, isn't it? So, and why is it? It's because on h1 it's just, yeah, it's just so hard to. He didn't have a pawn in hand. I think that's the real problem. If you just go back, like if you had just if you had a pawn in hand, then yeah, the point is he only has a knight in hand, which is why you're very safe. Whereas the moment you block, he can get that pawn in hand, and so suddenly you're in big danger. Yeah. So that's my take on it anyway. Because if you imagine yeah, so if you imagine the queen going here and a pawn here, and so now the same position with a pawn in hand, then in this position king h1 doesn't help you because you have this, and is it? Yeah, that is the best way of doing it. So check and checkmate. So yeah, that would be my, yeah, you need the pawn in hand, and that's why king h1 is good. There's no pawn in hand for g2. So yeah, interesting. And good fight back from Kleerkast for what a game he probably deserved to lose. And as Blunderman says, you'd be afraid that the opponent would get the pawn easily. Indeed. But it's not Bughouse, so you get a move in between. So yeah. So notice he takes with the b pawn because otherwise there'd be a trade of queens and the king would be slightly dislocated. So this is actually quite standard. So this is game 7. I'm just going to just play through until we get to critical positions because the king turns out did get dislocated. This is a nice little move, and I'm just remembering I saw this live. It's a fork on the 2 pawns, and I thought, nice move, but there's a move white has to defend both pawns. And I thought, well, now white's improved his position. He's developed his bishop. But Kleerkast has a good retort. A new fork, rook and pawn. Not so easy to defend both. Okay, he puts another queen down, but now we win a pawn. We chase the queen around, okay. But we've won a pawn, and black's doing nicely. He's a piece up, and he's got his pawn back as well. So this is what happened in the game. Takes back, queen running around, knight f takes e5, and again in the game I was thinking, this is obvious, straight away, rook at b1 is completely crushing. I mean, just to see, it's just king e2 and then you win the queen, and okay, you could take back, but then at b2 and get a knight on c1 or something like this. Completely crushing. Instead, Kleerkast is very patient with bishop a6, and this is actually a mistake because white has a very beautiful. He wants this. He saw rook at b1. He just wants rook at b1 and to take the knight with check. So he's very greedy here. But unfortunately, white does have a quite nice defense. I mean, black is still winning, but b3 at least just makes it a lot harder for black to break through. Apparently black is still winning, just it wouldn't be so easy to. Black is like -10, but it's just not so easy to see how to continue after at b3. But luckily for Kleerkast, this came, so allowing the counterattack. And here white has nothing in hand, so takes g7 isn't too much of a threat. You just say takes at h6, and maybe just back off. Okay, so takes knight came, takes here came, backs off, rook e8. I mean, everything's defended. White just doesn't have enough pieces to really cause threats. So black just playing knight here check, king f1, rook here check. And in this position, actually, black has a clear mate already, which I'll just show. Knight h2 takes here. You could block, but here, and queen here. You could take the knight, but queen here is checkmate. So it's a fairly clear checkmate, but instead, takes is also good. Takes. Oh, just basically take all the pieces. Fair enough. And all white has is rooks, so pretty sweet idea here. So actually, yeah, in this position, it was a fairly obvious thing to do, but there's a cuter mate, which is rook at d1, magnet mate, and then here. At the point if you take the knight, then queen here and rook is checkmate, and if you don't take the knight, then queen here is checkmate straight away. So that would have been easier, but okay, this is actually quite pretty in a way. He only has rooks, so you can just keep on checking and taking the rooks. So it's quite pretty actually. And this one just forces king. So it forces king takes rook, because if this, then this is checkmate straight away anyway. But if king takes rook, there's knight at a3, queen here, and this queen comes in. It's checkmate. So it was a pretty finish, although there were faster finishes. Oh, just to say, of course, yeah, that's everything. Yeah. So Kleerkast wins that game. Going into game 8, and we only have 10 minutes to go, and I was planning on covering a whole other match too. Seems like time is not on my side today. But this was a nice match between Kleerkast and doganswer. Takes, c3, defending his d-pawn, putting pressure on the knight. I haven't been doing deep opening analysis in this game. Sometimes I do that, but not this time. I was just looking more at critical positions. So just playing through to get through to what I thought were interesting positions. So he's giving up his queen. So black's doing fairly well here. If rook takes, stuff would land on e3 is the problem. On pawn at e3 is coming, so he decides to go for knight takes bishop first. Doesn't really help. Oh, yeah, apparently that's actually quite effective, because takes g6 is a bit of a mistake, and suddenly white's got some good attacking ideas here. King takes bishop, knight g5 check, and suddenly he's got rook takes rook or knight takes rook coming. And so out of nowhere he's drummed up a great attack. Rook takes f7, queen takes f7, rook at h8, king takes h8, knight takes queen, king g8. So this is all just, white actually has mate here basically from this point here. Rook takes rook, queen takes, white has mate with rook here check, knight takes queen. What's the mate? I'll just show it to you. It's queen at h8, knight here, queen takes pawn. Very standard pattern. And you're going to take anything here. Just take it, knight takes pawn check, and queen here checkmate. And if you just run straight away, then if you run back, queen here comes anyway, and if you run here, then knight takes pawn comes anyway. If king here, pawn here would be mate. Hi there, Mud Juminica. No, I don't want to become famous. Blunderman once says, Ganeas streamed something today, but I missed it. Is this today's game? Yes, so no, it's not. I'm streaming specifically stuff that the other streamers haven't covered. What he streamed was Blitz Bullet against Bugzilla, very impressive. Blitz Bullet winning 8-2, and Jan Lee against Zixon. But the thing about that match is because those two matches overlapped, he missed the first couple of games of Jan Lee against Zixon. So I was hoping to cover those first two games just to show you. And Jan Lee won that quite impressively, 7.5, 2.5. So Zixon was looking like one of the contenders to win the candidates, but Jan Lee's really shattered his hopes, rather. So what happened instead was bishop at h7, queen here, rook takes pawn, and knight here check, pawn here check, and a whole long sequence. Knight b4 check, knight here check, pawn here check, knight takes pawn, and knight here checkmate. So very pretty finish, I have to say, but longer than it needed to be. Also, in this position, b5 is kind of pretty as well, 3 knights in a row. So both ways are nice. Knight there is also checkmate. So the key is the pawn is covering this. One way of thinking of it, those two knights cover those 4 squares. This knight covers these 2 squares, and this pawn covers the last square. So that's why it's in a box. So that was game 8. Because time is short, I think I might just have to stop after 9 and 10, and since we're watching Kleerkast, we'll pass you on to Kleerkast stream. So game 9 was another. We see a lot of these guys basically. Basically, both playing the Kleerkast system. He allows takes h6, and doganswer goes straight for a sack. So black is up a lot of material, but has a slightly shaky king. Maybe a tiny error here. Maybe king g8 is slightly better to keep a watch on f7. Going here, the f7 square is open. Maybe that's just a slightly better for white because of that. And slightly uncomfortable. This is for black. Bishop at g7, knight here, and yeah, great game from doganswer. Just grinding away. Check, and queen here checkmate. I don't know, I don't think I have anything to say about that game. It was just a very successful grind from doganswer, and maybe the only thing I had to say was in this position here, maybe king g8 was slightly stronger to stop the invasion of bishop at f7. Because what happened in the game is bishop at f7, and that was slightly painful. White always stayed quite safe. The problem is you might go rook at g8, but then knight at f8. So it's pretty uncomfortable, I have to say. So good game from doganswer to get that one. And game 10, Kleerkast goes for e4. He does that sometimes. And we have a Scandi. Castles. Looking good for white. He's got a good center. Knight takes h2, desperate to try and create some weaknesses, but loses the queen. This is actually crushing. Excellent move again from Kleerkast, hitting the knight, but also hitting g7. There's a defense, which is played, but then there's check. Ooh, yeah, there's that too. Winning a piece, so that's nice. There's also bishop takes pawn, and queen d8 is another idea, but this is pretty neat too. Taking this, and throws it a check, throws in another check, just trying to break through. Takes. What's the idea here? He could have just gone takes, and that's mating apparently. Queen takes, king takes, and then I'm assuming at d6 is mating. You have enough. If he comes here, just simple queen here, and knight here, smother. But okay, he does d6 first, then takes here, and drops the queen over, and trying to give his king some luft. He takes f6 came, bishop at b6. There's a really cute mate here. It goes f7 check. You have to take. Promote with a double check, so you have to move the king, so we take it. And then f7 again is mate because the queen is cutting off all the squares. And there are two ways of playing it. You could also go at f7 takes, promote, takes, and push. So you have to use your pawn in hand. So that was cute, but instead this happened. Sidestep, knight here, check, and double checkmate. So another cute finish. Double checkmate to finish the series, and a really good win from Kleerkast. So if people in the Twitch chat could let me know if Kleerkast has started streaming yet, then when he does, I'll probably hand over to him. If I just go raid channel, he'll hopefully tell me when he starts streaming, or on Lichess. Not yet. Okay, so what I'll do actually is maybe I'll just take a look at the two games, Zixon against Jan Lee. I'm going to look at it from Jan Lee's perspective. So Jan Lee was black in game 1. And these are the games they were played today. The match was covered by Ganesh, but not the first couple of games because he was still finishing the end of Blitz Bullet against Bugzilla. So, Zixon is white, Jan Lee is black, and in game 1, Jan Lee goes for the old 4 knights with bishops on c4 and c5. And maybe this is common, but c3 apparently is even more common to try and stop this stuff happening. Takes, knight here, takes, knight takes g2 from Jan Lee. And here, apparently the move is just take back. Sorry, is that right? Yeah, apparently the move is just take back, and if at g4, just knight g5 or knight g1. And it's not too bad, apparently. But certainly it looks uncomfortable. But instead, Zixon allowed that knight to retreat. After all, the knight near the king is a friend, right? Well, it wasn't so friendly, because it's already threatening mate with knight at h3, pawn at g2. So Zixon rips the knight off, but unfortunately this knight comes and takes that bishop. And the bishop on h3, this weakness is a bit of a problem. g2 comes anyway. Takes here. Knight f5 is a good move, but black is doing really well here. So both defending f7 and with attacking intent. Takes a knight, rips off the only attacking piece of white's in his half of the board. Bishop takes f2, bishop here. And maybe this is the only thing Jan might have been able to do better, possibly, is he should have done a queen sack here. It would have been nice. Standard queen sack. Now these two bishops are checkmating white. If you just step back, pawn here is checkmate. But if you take it, then pawn here, pawn takes knight, winning a knight. And you can't go up again because knight f2 is mate. And if you can't take with the queen, because otherwise we're getting a queen in hand, then that's not going to work. So we step back. But the problem with stepping back, obviously you don't want to step back to h1, because otherwise knight f2 is still mate. So you step back to f1. But now there's a really devious move. Knight at g3 takes knight at h2. The king really only has one square to go to. And you can force it to that square with a couple of knight drops. And that's now checkmate. Bishop cutting off the light squares and the dark bishop cutting off the dark squares. So that would have been a really pretty queen sack had Jan played it, but not very easy to see necessarily. You're sacking your queen and you're sacking a bishop because you're hoping for this checkmate. But if you don't, sorry, I got this wrong. Did I get it wrong? Yeah, I got it wrong. It's not knight f2 yet. Sorry, it's you're sacking a queen, you're sacking a bishop, and now you're hoping for king h3, knight f2, because now that this square is covered. Sorry. So instead here, and then you use your 3 knights. So really, yeah, really beautiful mating idea. But instead what happened? Instead, at g4 happened. He lost his queen. Okay, but this is now mating soon as well. He took on d8, but actually he could have gone here directly for the mate, which he did later, which is check, drive him forward, check again, drive him forward, and the king is in a box, and that's checkmate. If you step forward directly, then we need that pawn to finish the job. Sorry, is that right? If this directly, then we need the pawn, king here, and then rook here. Checkmate. So notice again, the two knights next to each other control, they form a barrier. So that could have happened, but that actually didn't happen in the game. Black decided to grab this bishop first. Threatening looking move. Threatening the smothered mate, but it's not threatening the smothered mate because the bishop covers f7. So there's no smother. So it just simply sidesteps. Now it's a threat. Queen at g8 takes, knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes would be a smothered mate. But unfortunately for white, this is now checkmate. Takes, takes. Those two knights. So the same pattern this could have happened earlier. So that was game one, Zixon. I'm about to raid Kleerkast any moment now. It seems like they haven't started. Oh, they have started. Now that is weird. Jan Lee against Burkow has started. But I'm sure Kleerkast is covering it, so I'm just going to quickly show you the second game between Jan Lee and Zixon before I'm going to just double check. So this is a very interesting game. Jan Lee is white. He seems to be doing very nicely indeed. Oops. Okay, so just really nice solid setup. Takes. He's got a really solid center. So doing nicely, but this is turned out to be a blunder. Something like maybe just knight takes bishop is good. But you lose knight takes this bishop is the problem. Is anything else better? Knight takes bishop, knight takes bishop. Apparently this is okay. Feels a bit uncomfortable. But apparently the knight is guarding the square, so maybe you're just about okay. But yeah, this looks a little bit uncomfortable. Bishop at g5. Okay, what happened in the game was queen came out, and there's a very beautiful move here that Zixon missed, which is rook takes. And you can't take here because the knight takes bishop check, picking up the queen. It is picking up the queen because this follows. In fact, it's not just picking up the queen, it's actually checkmating you. Takes the queen with check, and checkmate. The knight's defended by this queen. So that's why you can't take that rook with the queen, but why not just take it with the bishop? No problem. There is a problem, because knight takes, and again, you can't really take with the queen because the check picks up the bishop and it hits the queen all kinds of trouble. But if you take with the pawn, there's bishop at h5, and the queen just doesn't have anywhere to go. Again, knight here check takes bishop is a problem. So we want to hold on to that bishop. We have to keep an eye on that bishop. White has an incredible defense, which is knight here check, and then rook here, exploiting the pin. And then knight here check, and then take the attacking bishop. Very nice. And if bishop takes knight, then white is somehow staying in it. Queen takes, block. Yeah, white's staying in it. But unfortunately for white, black has another little nice move up his sleeve. Rook at h4, threatening to take the queen with check. And if you back off, then this is coming as well. So you kind of just have to give up that queen. Okay, you can basically white doesn't have enough. White is down a lot of material, so he might be able to take a little bit, but he's safe. So basically, black has just got too much material, and yeah, no hope. Blunderman says, "Is KK streaming?" PKR says he was originally, but can't anymore. Oh, okay. So in that case, I'll step in. Since I am live anyway, let's step in. I was hoping to raid him, so thanks for letting me know. And hopefully I haven't missed too much action. I'm just going to be a little bit out of breath because I was coming to the end of what I thought I was doing. And I have a shaky screen, which is very weird. What can I do about that? We are in game one, and we're in time trouble, and we have a London system, and we have Jan Lee getting mate in game one. This is rather disturbing because my screen is shaking. And I know I should be following live action, but I want to show you what happened in the game. So Janley is black. It's a London system. I don't want analysis. Yeah, good. It's not showing analysis. And I don't want. Yeah, let's take that away. Don't need the logo. Okay. So it takes the rook. I didn't want all of these markers. This is still a live match, so I don't appreciate the markers. But unfortunately, Lichess does them automatically these days on titled players. And Jan Lee, as an LM, as a Lichess master, is a titled player. But suffice to say that he's doing well this position, and he found mate. So where's the mate? The mate is king h1, queen takes rook, bishop takes, or bishop takes, rook at g1 is mate. So that's what happened in game one. Nicely played. So Jan Lee, Bubkow is dangerous, and he takes game one, and he plays an aggressive French defense in game two. It'll be very interesting to see how Jan Lee does, actually. Because if Jan Lee can hit the 8-1s, 8-2s and 9-1s, Jan Lee is a contender to be the challenger for Jasugi 99, which would be wonderful. And PKR says, I think Cabbage might stream. That would be cool. I'm fully supportive of a Cabbage stream. Okay, he's live now. Excellent. Okay, so I'll send the raid over. Wonderful. And I'll be back another time to catch up on the match between Blitzbullet and Marioton, which I was going to cover also. So I'm going to just raid. How come I can't see it? Let's see. 1800. See if that works. Yes. Okay, let's raid Cabbage, aka 1800 underscore strength, aka 264 Brock. Let's raid.